Hi, so today I'm doing lamb Greek style, lamb kleftiko in the wood fire oven. So I'm preparing my fire here, stacking it up, getting some timber in there, a couple of pieces of paper, stacked it to the roof in the wood fire oven. Plenty of wood, so I'll get this going and let this fire up for a bit of time. A couple little fire lighters there to get it going, just 3 little cubes. I'm going to place those around the fire, so that'll help ignite it, and before you know it, this thing's going to be blazing, and I reckon the fire will take us probably somewhere in about an hour or so to get going. Placing one on the left there, I'm going to put another firelight on the right, one in the middle, right at the bottom, so it catches the paper, and that fire will get going. It'll be a pretty intense fire because we want this really hot and some flame to brown our lamb meat before we eventually foil it and let it steam in its juices and in the marinade that I put on it, and I'll explain all of that as we go through, so you'll see exactly what we're doing. So here's the fire about 10 minutes in. You can see it's really starting to catch and get going there. It's a pretty good looking fire thus far. Doesn't take long if your wood's nice and seasoned, and I'm using iron bark. Got a stack of it here. So here's our lamb forequarter, 3.5 kilos of it, and I just had the butcher chop it up for me into some smaller pieces so it's easier to manage than when it's in one chunk. And I'm going to marinate this up with a mix of olive oil, lemon juice, some fresh oregano, there's about 10 cloves of garlic in there, some rock salt and a little bit of black pepper. Putting that in the grinder and gonna make a sort of a paste out of it and rub that all over. I've also peeled some onions ready to go under the meat so that the meat sits up off of the baking tray so the heat of the baking tray doesn't burn the meat. So here's our fire about 30 minutes in. You can see it's really ablaze there, getting a really solid fire, almost ready to cook on. And now I'm going to baste up the meat. Here's the baste once it's all been blended up, nice and thick, and I've rubbed that all over the meat. About half of the marinade so far it's been rubbed all over, and then I'm going to pour some water in the bottom of that tray as well, so that it helps it steam along. Put the onions underneath, and even the lemons that I squeezed, I'm going to put the used lemons under there to help infuse it even more with some flavour. Got it there ready to go into the oven. We'll whack that in there now because the fire's about ready. It's been about an hour and 15 or so since I started that fire. Here is the fire. You can see there it's getting some nice ash over it, and it's pretty much become all charcoal. I'm going to get that fire and move it to one side. The oven, as you can see, is showing well over 300, almost 400 degrees there. So there's plenty of heat, and that intense heat at the beginning is to brown it all over and to get the meat nice and crispy on the outside and a bit of a skin happening there. So here's the fire now. I've pushed it all over to one side so it's in one corner. I'm going to put a fresh log on there, a small one, which will just create smoke as well as flame. Plenty of heat in it still, as you can see. So I'm going to put the baking tray all over to the right hand side away from the fire. The fire will curl up over the roof of the oven and grill it. I'm putting the tray on a rack because I don't want the heat of the tiles at the bottom getting to the bottom of the tray and potentially burning the bottom of our onions and the potatoes that I'll put on later on. So lifting it up like that will ensure just the flame gets to it and the hot air really, and then I'll seal the door over it when I put it on so that it creates a thick billowing smoke, and that thick billowing smoke will create a nice aroma in there. So after about 20 minutes of grilling, here it is. I'm just taking it out and giving it a toss so that it gets browned all over. You can see the top half is really browned, and as you turn it over you see the bottom half is not browned yet. You can see the juices in there, the bottom, the water, the lemon juice and all that sort of stuff, which will help steam and soften this meat up so it's really moist and soft and hopefully flakes apart and just pulls apart really simply without too much effort. That's what we're looking for, a really good Greek style kleftiko type of lamb. So while that's now doing on the other side, I'm preparing my potatoes. You don't want to put the potatoes in straight away because they won't take too long to cook. Fairly large potatoes, and I'm just going to halve them and throw them into a bowl and put the rest of my lemon and oil and garlic mix over the top of it. So I've got about 6 or 7 potatoes there, chopping them up and peeled, of course. I'm going to put them into a big bowl where I can just splash it all around and get it all mixed up. There they all are, just halved. Getting that marinade of lemon, oregano, garlic, salt, pepper, olive oil, pouring it over the top. Then I'm going to get a nice big handful of good sea salt, rock salt. I'm going to squeeze another lemon just over the top of it, really to get that intensified lemon flavour. I like lemon on this sort of dish. It really complements the lamb really well and takes away some of the gaminess of the lamb, some of its aroma and some of the intense lamb flavour that some people don't really like, but it does complement it really well. And there's everything in there now. I'm just going to give it a toss around with my hands. Rock salt going on, there you go. Good, probably half handful of rock salt. So here we are now. I've taken it out, the lamb of the oven, and I've put all the potatoes in underneath. The fire is there, as you can see. I've taken the door off, so once you take the door off and oxygen gets to that fire, it really starts billowing up again. When I took the door off, there was no flame because we'd starved of oxygen, but the heat's all trapped in there. I'm going to foil it up now, get heaps of probably 2 or 3 layers of foil over it, pouring whatever was left of the juices from when I basted those potatoes, which you can see there I've put all underneath the meat, so the potatoes haven't been in and cooked at all yet. I just got them under there under the meat to lift the meat up, so the potatoes will half sit in that juice. I'm going to cover it up, 2 or 3 good layers of catering grade foil. Okay, now here we are. This is been baking for about an hour 15 minutes. You can see there that it's getting soft, the lamb, starting to flake apart. I'm going to spoon some of the juices all over and baste it, give all the lamb a bit of a turn, foil it back up, get it back into that oven and leave it now for about another hour, which means it would have had somewhere in about 3 to 3.5 hours of total cooking time. But this will really now get that last little bit of tenderness happening into the lamb and getting it all breaking down so it's nice and soft. Okay, another hour has passed, and as you can see now we've taken it out. I'm going to start taking the foil off to have a look at what this thing looks like. It's pretty hot, a lot of steam coming out, and there you go. She's looking great. You can see the amount of colour that's on it. The meat is actually quite soft and tender. It's just pulling apart really nicely. There's a lot of juice in the bottom of the pan. You can see there how it's just fat and everything is just rendered right down. It's exactly what we wanted. A slow baked Greek lamb falling apart. Look at this one just coming off. And so now I'm going to put it into a serving dish. I'm going to separate the meat, separate the potatoes. I'm going to then strain what's left in the pan juices. So I'm just left with the juice and none of the other bits and pieces which are in there. And just boil that up on the stove and make a little bit of a sauce / gravy to pour over it as you eat it. But there you go, there is my lamb kleftiko.